Please have your seats. If you need to have a conversation, please take it outside. Good evening, my name is Jim Zito. I am on your Evergreen Elementary School Board, and I'm honored tonight to be moderating the candidates debate for our 27th Assembly District with two candidates who both serve on our City Council. Currently, Councilmember Kalra and former Vice Mayor and Councilmember Madison Nguyễn. They'll be opening up with 2-minute statements, and they'll be going back and forth for the statements and the questions. We had a coin toss, and Madison will be starting. So we'll pass the mic.
Jim, good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the District 8 Community Roundtable for putting together this forum, and also for the Evergreen Times for publicizing it. That's why we have such a huge audience tonight. My name is Madison Nguyễn. I am a candidate for California State Assembly, District 27, which we are in the heart of. So let me just begin by also thanking the voters who actually voted for us in the primary. Because of your vote and support, we came in first place, and I hope that to continue to receive your support. But for a year and a half, our campaign, my campaign team has crisscrossed the entire Assembly District to talk to voters, to listen to them, to see what are the issues that are important to them. And what we have heard and what we have come back with to frame into a campaign of 3 big issues. 1, education. 2, job creation. And 3, affordable housing. For education, we have heard that voters want an advocate who will advocate for universal pre-K, so every child in the state of California can have free preschool, as well as a University of California campus right here in San Jose. We like to call UC San Jose one day. The second thing is job creation. How can we bring back manufacturing jobs for working families? Now, we know that we teach our boys and girls how to code, how to program, because we live here in Silicon Valley. But what about manufacturing, vocational and education training? Those are just as important. And the last thing is affordable housing, and how can the next Assembly member address the housing crisis? What I have come up with is how can we implement workforce housing for our teachers and those people who actually serve in the public sector. So I'm really glad to be here, and glad to engage here with my former colleague, and we are going to have a great discussion. Thank you so much.
And I want to thank the District 8 Roundtable for hosting not just the 2 of us, but a lot of great candidates and discussing really important issues on the November ballot. My name is Kalra. I'm a San Jose City Council member, and I grew up here in San Jose. My family moved here when I was 6 years old, back in 1978. You can do the math, I'll tell you I'm 44. And I grew up in South San Jose ever since. Since 78, I went to Oak Grove High School, went on to UC Santa Barbara and then Georgetown Law School. When so many of my friends very happily went on to the private sector to make a lot of money, I chose to come back here to serve the community in which I grew up. And I came back here and worked as Deputy Public Defender for 11 years here in Santa Clara County. I also taught. I taught at high school when I was in DC, and I also taught at San Jose State University, as well as Lincoln Law School of San Jose. And I've spent my entire career, for 20 years, dedicated to public service. As a public defender on numerous nonprofit boards, serving the community as a Human Rights Commissioner, Planning Commissioner, even starting a neighborhood association where I live. And it's been my honor to serve this community for the past 8 years in an extremely diligent manner, and to have meaningful leadership throughout the region on transportation, on the environment, and on education. And in Sacramento, I certainly look forward to continue my dedication to this community, to San Jose, the city in which I grew up and the city that I love, to ensure that we can do better going forward. To make sure our economy is an economy that works for everyone, to make sure our transportation infrastructure is improved, make sure that we're creating jobs for those that are exiting education, and of course for our students to make sure they have a wonderful education as well. I look forward to the conversation we're about to have, and I really appreciate the time that you're giving us to introduce ourselves to you. Thank you.
Councilwoman Kalra has the first question. And that is, what led you to run for office the first time, And of all your accomplishments while in public office, what are one or two of your most proud accomplishments?
It's tough for 1 minute to do that, but I chose to run. I didn't plan on running. I never planned on being an elected official. I decided a long time ago to dedicate my life to public service. And the combination of work that I had done as a public defender, as a commissioner, as a teacher, and really getting to know the neighborhood in which I grew up, as well as neighborhoods around San Jose. With that in mind, I ran for office, and I'm glad that I did. There's so much that I'm very proud to have accomplished during the time I've been in office as the chair of PTA, as the first San Jose councilman to ever chair the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, looking out for our air quality. And so it's hard to pick one thing, but one thing that I did do when I ran as the founder of my neighborhood associations, I said, I want to empower our neighborhoods. So I'm proud to say after 8 years, we have more than twice the number of active neighborhood associations in my district than when I started. And we have engagement like we've never seen before. And when I'm long gone and forgotten, that's still going to be there. And that makes me really proud.
I actually grew up in the Central Valley in a small town called Modesto and spent my childhood actually working the farms and the fields. And so one day when we were working, my dad actually got yelled at one of the foremen and called him a very derogatory term. And I think at that point, that's when something clicked in my brain that says, whatever I wanted to do, that I wanted to be a public servant, because I do not want how the foreman treated my dad being treated to working families in our community. And so I ran for school board when I was 27 years old and served on the school for 3 years, and then after that, city council. On the council, what I'm most proud of is working on educational policies as well as creating more affordable housing options for residents. Within the first 4 years of my term on the San Jose City Council, we actually created more than 1,000 housing units in District 7. I'm very glad to say that I'm one of the co-founders of the Franklin McKinley Children's Initiative, where we actually work with families and children so that they can have a quality of education in all elementary schools here in our city.
Thank you very much. This next question, yours, Ms. Nguyen. Who and which groups or PACs support your candidacy and are providing direct or independent funding for your campaign? 1 minute.
Well, we don't really engage with for those who do independent expenditure, and it's actually against the law. But we have actually seen mailers that are being put together by the Parent Teacher Alliance that have been really putting a lot of flyers in, and some of the TV ads that you saw in the primary is actually done by them. And so, but I have to say that I'm actually very, very happy to have the endorsement of so many elected officials here, including Mayor Sam Liccardo as well as former Mayor Chuck Reed. And over 70% of our donation actually came from individuals. If you look at, and all these are public information, if you look at my campaign disclosure form, over 70% of them actually came from individuals. And most of them are actually here in San Jose, and a huge portion of that actually came from the Assembly District. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why we did so well in the primary, beating my opponent by nearly 15 percentage points, because I believe that in this kind of economy, if someone's willing to write you a $5 check, most likely they'll vote for you.
I'm proud to have support from a broad range of individuals and organizations. In terms of, to answer the question, some of the PACs that have done outside spending for me include teachers, nurses, public safety like firefighters. Now, the reality is that, yes, Madison came in first. Let's be real about this. Over $2 million of outside money came in to support her. Now that number has hit $3 million. These folks aren't doing it for fun and games. When they're putting $3 million to elect an individual, you gotta think that they want something out of it. These are big landowners. These are very wealthy individuals. A lot of the money that are supporting the PACs, including that Parent Teacher Alliance, if we look at the California Charter School Association, a lot of it are billionaires coming from out of state. The same groups that are funding those PACs have funded directly to Madison's campaign over $150,000 in contributions, many of them $4,200 contributions, which is the maximum. So I'm proud that the support that's coming from me from outside groups are actually the teachers, the nurses, the janitors, the police officers that live in this state and live in this community, and not from out of state, and certainly not the wealthy elite of our society.
what Councilmember Kalra actually forgot to mention, he also received hundreds and thousands of dollars from different unions up and down the state. So while our campaign traveled up and down the Assembly District, crisscrossing the Assembly District, he spent more time traveling throughout the state of California, soliciting contributions from all the unions and the labor movements, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think at the end of the day, if you think that a lot of this money is going to buy this election, look at Meg Whitman, look at Jeb Bush, what happened to them? It's about hard work, talking to voters, let them know what the issues are, because at the end of the day, they are the smart people who actually vote for a candidate that works hard and listen to them.
Like I said, over $3 million. So you can look at it yourself. The money is coming from out of state, it's coming from all around the state. And so you want to talk about crisscrossing the state, the money that's coming in to support this candidate right here is coming from all around the country, from billionaires, the Walton family, John Arnold from Texas. Look it up. The data is there. You have to research it. It is dark money. You have to go a couple layers in to see it. So yes, as my opponent said, almost $500,000 in outside money coming in for me. Hers is now eclipsed $3 million.
All right, now we get down to some hardcore issues. Thank you for that. And in the future, if you do want to go in 30 seconds and a half, please respect the timer. Yes. All right, no applause until the end, please. Okay. No, I forgot to start. Getting back to starting. All right. What is your position on Prop 55, which extends the income tax surcharge on the wealthiest?
I absolutely support Proposition 55. I think it's very much needed so that we can provide more resources and money to our K through 12 education as well as community colleges and higher education. This is a proposition that I hope that you will consider supporting as well, and not just an extension of it, but possibly in the near future, trying to make it permanent, because we know that we send all of our students to public schools, the public school system. I'm a beneficiary from the public school system because I had a really excellent public school education. That's what brought me here today, to be able to stand in front of you, ask for your support to represent you in the state assembly. And I want that opportunity for every child that actually grows up here in our wonderful state. And that's as a public school teacher, I currently teach at De Anza College. I teach sociology there. And this is something that's very crucial, not just for our community, but practically for every neighborhood in our city.
I also support Proposition 55. I think it has served the purpose that it was designed for, which was really, particularly at the time it was passed, it was Proposition 30 at first. It was designed really at that point, it was to keep our education system afloat. Now we realize that now that the years have gone by, we've been able to actually not only keep the education system, the funding to education at par, but with Prop 55 we had the opportunity to actually get our education even more money into our education system, including at the local, our local system, our community colleges, our university system. Prop 55 is critically important. I urge everyone in here to support it. As you can see, there's some things we don't agree on, but there's a lot of things we do agree on, and this is one of them that you're going to hear soundly from the both of us, that Prop 55 is essential. If it doesn't pass, there are going to be critical cutbacks to education throughout our state, including right here in San Jose.
So, keeping in line with funding, they ask you to put your thinking caps on. Control funding formula has restored K-12 funding to at least pre-recession levels. However, many school districts have not restored the program, services, and/or class size cuts to previous levels. What legislation would you support or author, if any, that would ensure districts restore programs and small class sizes to the pre-recession levels?
That's actually a great question, because it's one thing to put more money into the system. The other thing is, the second aspect of that is, where does that money go? Sometimes with education, a lot of bureaucracies, the money goes in there, we see voted administration, what have you. The money needs to come locally and come into the classroom. And as your state assembly member, I will certainly author legislation to ensure, particularly with the passage of Prop 55, that as funding comes in, the first priority has to be to make sure that local funding is restored. All the programs that were cut pre-recession are restored before that money goes into other areas and newer programs, or to administration, or to administrator salaries. We want to make sure that money comes into the classroom, and that at the bare minimum, that the programs that were lost are restored, and then we can see what we can do to supplement those programs to make sure our children have a quality education.
Anytime that you're about to put more money or more resources into the classroom or the local school district, you need accountability. That's the kind of legislation that I want to introduce. If we are going to put more money, more resources, asking voters to actually pass certain bonds so that we can actually add money, more revenue to our school district, there needs to be accountability. At the end of the year, the school district needs to provide some sort of accountability so that we, as leaders, understand that yes, this percentage, 10% of this went into the classroom, 5% went into teacher salary, another 15% went into another creating more programs and services for the school. Accountability is so important, and I know that maybe some folks in the public school system and in the private school system, well, we don't really deal with private school system, but even in the charter school, we need accountability, and that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that wherever area that I will send this money, that I need to know that it's being effective and it's being used very wisely.
Thank you. So along the lines of taxation, would you support a modification to Prop 13? And if so, what are your thoughts on possible changes?
So just for the audience, Proposition 13 is capping your property tax at 2%. And at this point, I'm not interested in raising that. However, we ought to look at perhaps looking at commercial properties, because a lot of, just so you know, there's a loophole right now with people who purchase commercial properties. If you purchase commercial properties and you own 50% or more, then you pay the current value. But if you actually purchase that and it's being divided, let's say by 4 people, so each one of you have 25%, then you will pay the property tax of that market value, whatever the value that you purchased. Obviously, that's a loophole, and as a state legislator, I want to look into to see how we can close that loophole so that people are actually paying for the property tax, whether it's commercial tax, at the right price. Because the way that things are going right now, if we don't put more money, more revenue into our state budget, everything is going to deteriorate. And we need money for road infrastructure, we need money for our public school system, we need more money to build more affordable housing for low-income families, for seniors and for veterans. So that's the area that I would look at when it regards to Prop 13.
Look, it's not just about the loophole. Prop 13 was a bill of goods that was sold upon the promise that we would make sure that our seniors and those that have households wouldn't lose their home because taxes kept going up. We must make sure we never change Prop 13 for residential homeowners. However, as that was what was put on the front as the face of Prop 13, the other half of it was really commercial property. We've seen since Prop 13, it used to be that commercial was 60% of property taxes and residential 40%. It's now flipped because residential turns over a lot more. And so what we have to do is a split roll where we now look at our commercial property tax, have them pay their fair share, but make sure that residents never get their property tax increased like what happened pre-Prop 13. That would be a disaster.
Okay, moving over to other issues in the state. How should California address its homeless problem? This is a 2-minute question.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest and most important issues that the state is dealing with and needs to deal with in the short term and long term. It's exacerbated here in Silicon Valley. So some of the things we're doing here, I support and would support further at the state level. And so, we do have the county measure, which is essential in order for us to build supportive and transitional housing for the homeless. But in addition, we have inclusionary housing in San Jose that requires 15% of new market rate to be below market. We have a housing impact fee that will be used to build affordable rental. And we also have to do more in order to ensure that those that are homeless can transition. Because look, at the end of the day, if we look at the recession, the number of the chronic homeless doubled. And a lot of those folks are working. Some of the homeless that you see that are visible, there are more than that that you don't even know are homeless. They're living in their cars, they're working, they're students, about a tenth of CSU students are homeless. We need to do more. Some of the programs that I've supported includes All the Way Home, to ensure that every homeless veteran is housed by 2018. We're seeing great success with that. We've already gotten about over 20, in 1 year, over 20% now housed. And I think that's a great program to take statewide. There shouldn't be a veteran homeless throughout our state. It's a shame. Additionally, we have the opportunity to make sure that we help the city and the county from the state level. So the city and the county now are getting funds to help. The state needs to make it easier to build transitional housing, to make it easier to build affordable housing in the right places, so that we make sure that not only are we dealing with the human cost of homelessness, but we also deal with the blight aspect and the aspect of it being unsafe for anyone that's out there that's homeless. We want to make sure that they're safe and they're protected, that neighborhoods are safe and protected. To do that, it takes commitment, and I'm certainly prepared to do that.
When I was serving on the San Jose City Council, and I served on the council for 9.5 years, unfortunately, in our council district, we also house the largest homeless encampment, which is on Story Road, or below Story Road. And a couple of years ago, we had to close that down because the state was going to sue the city. And so that happened. That actually had more folks out in the streets, living under the creeks, in the creeks, under the bridges, and out the streets. One of the things that Madison was part of, and of course partnering with the county, is doing right now is what Councilmember Oshkar mentioned, which is All the Way Home, an initiative that I wholeheartedly support. But I think that there are other things that we ought to think about doing. One of the things that we actually introduced when I was on the council is how can we look at some of the dilapidated motels and hotels and turn those into temporary housing, or even transitional housing for the homeless. Get them back on their feet, provide some mental health issues, get them into all this temporary housing, and then provide jobs, provide vocational education and training for some of these folks. Because whether we want to or not, we can't keep on providing housing for the homeless community. We have to make sure that they become self-sufficient and self-reliant. Because if they don't have jobs and don't have an adequate job training skill, then you have to go through that cycle all over again. And the government eventually is going to run out of money to be able to provide services for these folks. And so that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a model where this is not just a local issue, it's not just it's a regional issue, but it has to be a statewide issue. And as your council member, I will work so hard to advocate so that the city of San Jose and the county of Santa Clara would have more funding to provide these kind of services, programs, education, and vocational training for these individuals. Because at the end of the day, if they're not self-sufficient and self-reliant, we have to go through this cycle again, and that's not what we want to do.
Thank you. Okay, along with other problems that the state has to deal with, we'll address one more, and that is, what can you foresee the state doing to improve our transportation infrastructure? This is a 2-minute question.
Well, right now on your November ballot, for those who are absentee voters, you will receive that next Tuesday, starting October 11th. But I hope that you will consider voting also for Measure B. This is a transportation measure that will allocate money to providing improvements for road infrastructure for the next phase of BART and other issues that relates to transportation. And I just wanted to commend Senator Jim Bell, if he's here tonight, for all the wonderful work that he has done regarding to transportation. This is a senator that has worked so hard to bring so much more money back to Santa Clara County as well as San Jose. And I'd like to continue be a partner with him if I get elected to work on some of these issues and learn from him, because he's actually been there for 4 years. And so what can a state assembly member do? There's not much we can do except to advocate for more funding, because the city needs that money to provide the kind of road infrastructure that you need. And so you can count on me to continue to work really hard, work with Senator Jim Bell if he's re-elected again, to make sure that we continue to be at the forefront advocating for more funding, more resources to bring back here to our city.
Okay, our next question would be, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
Thank you. Well, you know, I'm honored to be running in this race, and I'm also honored that throughout the state, there's no one that has more expertise on transportation running for the assembly than I do. And that's based upon 7 years on the Valley Transit Authority Board, including being the chair of the VTA, being on the Caltrain Board of Directors for 7 years. And so transportation is something that I know, I'm very familiar with. I'm honored to have the support of Senator Jim Bell, the chair of the Transportation Committee. He understands my knowledge of transportation, because we can't wait for someone to learn on the job what to do about transportation, because the state can do a lot more than just bring funding, far more than that. And I'm very proud that the time that I was on BTA, that I started actually the Envision Silicon Valley Committee, which was the public committee that led to the ballot measure that's going to be on your ballot this November, Measure B. I'm also proud of the fact that I advocated and lobbied on behalf of all of you on bringing BART to Silicon Valley. BART's going to be opening next year, 1 year ahead of schedule, $75 million under budget, and I'm committed to make sure that BART comes all the way through to downtown San Jose during the recession. I'm proud of the fact that I stood up against those, particularly from San Francisco, that wanted to cut service to San Jose dramatically, cut the baby bullet in half, and I fought against that. I got enough people to agree with me on the Caltrain board. We kept service to San Jose on Caltrain through the recession. Now it has its highest ridership in history. And so what I additionally want to do is bring more transit access to students and youth and seniors. One thing that while I was on the VTA board, we started the mobility program. And in fact, we even brought the bus here one time during the senior program, the mobility bus, to teach seniors how to use the bus system before they needed to, while they're still driving. If the day came where they needed it, at least now it wasn't foreign to them. And we also brought more youth passes and senior and disabled passes as well. I look forward to working really hard to bring more transportation options and reduce congestion here in San Jose.
And you can hold on to it. Would you support an oil and mineral extraction tax on private industry in California? Why or why not? So 1 minute question.
Yes, absolutely. We are the only state in the United States of America that is an oil-producing, oil-extracting state that does not have an extraction fee. The only one. And so other states, even Texas has it, you name it, they all have it. And so that's our natural resources, right? That's our natural resources that they're withdrawing. And so absolutely we should charge a fee, and we should use that money for clean energy programs to put solar panels on low and middle income households. That will serve a dual purpose of disincentivizing the extraction of fossil fuels and incentivizing clean energy and bringing solar and clean energy to the average household. I think if we do those two things, we're going to see a huge amount of resources coming from these programs that we otherwise don't have the resources for unless we tax. If we're going to tax the oil companies that are making more profit now than they have in history, tens of billions of dollars a year.
This would be another issue that both Councilmember Carr and I wholeheartedly agree upon. Yes, I would absolutely support an oil extraction tax. I think this is very much needed, and I agree with a lot of points that he made. One of the things that I wanted to touch upon is that looking at the revenue that we can actually extract from this oil tax, and where should that revenue go to? I think that revenue should go to high schools and community college to actually offer internship and apprenticeship so that these students can actually learn how to install solar panels, learn more about clean energy technology, so that they can be ready to go work for a company like Tesla or SunPower, Sunrun, some of the great companies that we have here, not just in San Jose, but in Silicon Valley. We have to make sure that we use those revenue to the best that we can and make it the most out of it. And that starts with education. That starts with training our high school students, our returning students at the community colleges, so that they can prepare. If they do not want to go to a 4-year college, they can actually have the skills and the education to go work for some of these companies.
Thank you very much. So along those lines, what legislation would you support or propose regarding vocational training for these individuals who are not necessarily college bound? That's a 1 minute question.
Thank you so much for the question. That hits on the platform number 2 of my campaign. I don't know about many of you, but, you know, a little bit over 20 years ago, I was a high school kid, and, you know, I know that I want to go to college, but I have so many friends who actually didn't think about going to a 4-year college because maybe they couldn't afford it or it was just not the right time. But guess what? They were able to go out and find a job because they had the training, the proper vocational training and education that was offered at Modesto High School, where I went to school. And for the last 20 years, we have not seen those programs being offered at the high school or even community college. And so what I want to do is that I want to get the state to start reinvesting for some of these vocational education and training at all the high schools in California, particularly here in Silicon Valley, because it is so expensive to live here. And even if you have a 4-year degree, these days, you can't even guarantee a job. It used to be that you have a high school diploma with some technical training. You can actually go out and be an auto mechanics, doing all these wonderful things to support your family. That has slipped away, and we need to bring it back.
Well, we certainly need to invest more in vocational training. And the reality is that those are jobs that can't be outsourced, right? And those are jobs that you're going to put up a solar panel, if you're going to do some electrical work, if you're going to put in a pool in someone's home, whatever it is, we need people skilled to do that. And those are good quality jobs. And I think that we need to, first of all, demystify the idea that college is the only thing that people should be aiming for, or that's a successful path. The reality is that there are a whole lot of people that are doing really well working in those important jobs. I think what we should do is, in addition to supporting things like Metro Ed's a phenomenal program at Eastside Union High School District, training folks who vocational training is. Right next to us, we have Evergreen Valley College. There's middle college there right now that high school students are going to high school through middle college. There's no reason why Evergreen Valley College cannot be the vocational hub for all of our students in the Silicon Valley, but certainly in San Jose. San Jose City is doing a great job with the building trades and our labor college. We can make sure that we do the same at Evergreen.
Thank you. Okay, what are your thoughts on cap and trade, and what else can the state do to address climate change?
So I was the first city council member in the history of San Jose to serve as the chair of the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, covering 7 area counties. So I know this very well. When I was the chair, we actually put together the regional plan. We were the first air district in the nation to pass a climate action plan. So with cap and trade, it's a phenomenal revolutionary program that now other countries are looking at modeling. And it really does a great job of both disincentivizing polluters, while at the same time ensuring that those that do pollute bring that money in locally and allow us to create green energy, clean energy programs. So I fully support it. I think that those programs should be used not only in our schools and not only in our residences, but to create affordable housing along transit lines as well, because that is also going to have the impact of protecting our environment. Today, if you read an op-ed, I wrote an op-ed on protecting Coyote Valley. That's another way that we fight against climate change, is protecting our open spaces and making sure we build where we should be building and not in our open spaces.
I believe that cap and trade is definitely one of the most important landmark legislations that our leaders in Sacramento actually passed. And just yesterday, they actually had a signing ceremony for the 10th anniversary. So this is something that I completely support. Just last year, or earlier this year, the legislature also passed SB 350, which is very closely related to cap and trade and allowing for California as the leader to lead in the climate change fight. Now, regardless of what Donald Trump says, climate change is real, and we need to do something about it. As we're speaking right now, we're sitting here, but folks in Florida is enduring the most dangerous storm in the last decade. For more than a decade, this is the most dangerous storm that's happening right now. We're seeing sea level rise in states like Florida. We're seeing the drought here in California. We're seeing so many things that are happening because of climate change. And let's not pretend that if we just sit here and do nothing about it, that it will go away. We need to take it upon ourselves, not just as political leaders, but as residents, to do something about this. Make ourselves more, I'm so sorry. Obviously, it's an issue that we're very passionate about.
So that was the last of our questions. Take a big sigh. Catch your breath.
We can go for another hour.
What I ask you to do, you've got 2 minutes to close. So summarize your campaign and your positions on other issues you may not have touched on, and let us know why you believe you're better.
So thank you for the time. I'm really excited about the opportunity to continue to serve this community. I'm honored to be endorsed by the California Democratic Party, as well as our Congresswoman, So Lofgren, but also 3 of my opponents from June, including Bun Lay, who's on the East Side Union School Board, who was the only Republican that ran in June, as well as Kong Do and Esau Herrera. In addition to Senator Bell and so many legislators, having support from the Sierra Club and League of Conservation Voters, having support from our police officers and firefighters and nurses and teachers, and on and on. Please go to oshcaller.com. The list is really long. You can learn more, not just about who supports me, but what I stand for and what I've actually done. And so I'm excited because the work that I've done in my entire career has really helped me to learn about the issues that not just matter to San Jose, but how we do something about it. And so I'm very excited about the opportunity to work on the environment. I'm very excited about improving our transportation infrastructure. I'm very excited about expanding our Medi-Cal and making sure that seniors have the opportunity to actually get treatment when they need it. And so when we look at this election, I just ask you to look very carefully because this is an important campaign. It's an important election. See closely and look closely and investigate closely on the issues of who's always been there on the issues that matter to the San Jose residents. And you're going to see, there were some times in June, my opponent, I was getting 3, 4, 5 mailers from her, whether it was from her or paid for someone else. Think critically and look critically as to why people want her elected and are spending millions of dollars to do it, and why people that are paying union dues that she may be critical of that want me elected are actually serving our community. And so I'm just going to ask you to email me at osh@oshcaller.com if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you personally have. But more significantly, I'm really excited about the opportunity to continue to serve the city in which I grew up in and that I love.
I really don't care who wants to get me elected. I care who's going to elect me, and that's you. I'm here today because I want to personally tell you a little bit about myself. Not that you haven't seen some of my TV ads or mailers, but like many immigrants here, my family came to this country back in the early 1980s, and I left the country when I was 4 years old. A 4-year-old kid that came to this country with nothing. Grew up, went to the public school system, worked in the farms and the fields until I went away to college, went to UC Santa Cruz, did my graduate work at the University of Chicago, came back to pursue a PhD in sociology again at Santa Cruz. My daughter's here tonight. She wants to see how her mom is doing. Hi, Olivia. And it's these kids that I want to work for. Of course I have a bias. I'm a young mother, and I look at the possibility of my daughter growing up in a wonderful state, a state that has given me so much, to be able to be here asking for your support, asking for your vote, asking for you to support me so I can represent you, to bring the kind of opportunities that every working family here in California needs. If you're talking about big money being able to buy this election, let's debunk that. The endorsement that I have received came from 2 big newspapers here, both Metro and the San Jose Mercury News. And guess what the Mercury News said? She is an independent thinker. She is an independent thinker. That's who I am. I'm going to put your needs, your concerns first before anybody else. I have the endorsement of folks like Blanca Alvarado, who is super liberal. And then, of course, I have some of the endorsement from more conservative folks like Mayor Chuck Reed. And then folks like Sam Liccardo, who is pretty much in the middle. So if you look at that, that's pretty much across the aisle, because they believe that no matter what, Madison always put the needs of the people before the interests of anybody else or any big corporations. And I have shown that in the last 13 years in public office, and I will continue to show that for the next 12 years as your assembly member. Thank you so very much.